Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Upgrades. I'm Jeremy Knoll.
And I'm John Suarez.
And in this episode, we're going to talk about the Planar Portal deck, not the card, the deck, from Adventures in the Forgotten Realms, headed up by Prosper Tomebound as the commander. I know that we discussed a little bit about how annoying that can be sometimes when you have like decks or sets that are named after cards or vice versa.
Yeah, as a retailer, it is a nightmare.
Yeah. So this one is pretty sweet. I'm liking the flavor of this one. It's very much the black red, make some treasures, and then it has a lot of the exile and play those cards from exile kind of effects. So Prosper Tomebound kind of encompasses all that. It's a 1/4 for 2 black red. Tiefling Warlock has Death Touch. Its first ability, Mystic Arcanum, says at the beginning of your end step, exile the top card of your library. Until the end of your next turn, you may play that card. So it kind of lets you see what's coming up and you can play that later. And then Pact Boon, whenever you play a card from exile, create a treasure token. I know you like those kinds of effects,
I
John,
do.
so
I like treasure tokens. Big fan of treasure tokens. And I like being able to play extra cards. So, that effect to kind of just put cards in exile and play them later is something I'm very, very on board with.
Yeah. And there's been a lot of support for that kind of thing more
Yes.
recently, too, specifically. So it's pretty exciting to get a commander that kind of really helps, with that whole system, that whole like exiling and playing those cards.
Yep.
So for cards that we have talked about putting into the deck, I'm going to let you start off with this first one because you seemed like you really
I love this card. This is great.
one.
I've played this card in Vintage before. It's fantastic. So this is an old card from Champions of Kamigawa. It's called Uba Mask. And it is typically it's a prison piece because you don't want to let your opponents draw cards. So it's 4 mana. It's an artifact. If a player would draw a card, that player removes that card from the game face up instead. So they don't draw it. You just put it to the side face up. And each player may play cards he or she removed from the game with Uba Mask this turn. So you can play the card that you've drawn. And if you don't get it anymore. But with
It's just exiled.
It's just exiled. But with Prosper, this means any card you draw at any point you want to play, you'll be able to get a treasure from, which is pretty sweet.
Yeah. And those treasures build up real quick, and then you can play the bigger creatures, bigger cards much easier. So
it's also a sweet card against those blue players that play like the really big draw spell, right? And then you just prevent them from being able to do that. So
yep,
pretty nice.
For sure. The next one is one that I know I've really liked recently, and that is Burji, God of Storytelling. And the flip side is Harnfell, Horn of Bounty.
Yes.
So this one, I think this one is really interesting because it's one that I think either side you want in specific versions of decks. Like, for example, I think Burji is really good in something like my Rael deck, where you want to build up those extra mana with playing those extra spells. Whereas something like Harnfell is really good in, I think, this deck specifically because it has that discard a card, exile the top 2 cards of your library. You may play those cards this turn. I think this is a really powerful artifact for 4 in a red. I love it so much that I actually someone ended up gifting me some artist proofs of both sides of it.
Very sweet.
Of the showcase version of it. And I love this card a lot.
Yeah, with Prosper, it's really sweet. It doesn't reduce your spell by 1, but essentially gives you the mana back, which is really nice.
Yeah.
For any of those cards. Next card I have is a fairly new one as well, which is Cunning Rhetoric. 2 and a black, enchantment. Whenever an opponent attacks you and or one or more planeswalker you control, you exile the top card of your library, of that player's library, and you may play that card for as long as it remains exiled, using mana of any color to play it.
Yeah.
So
this was one of the ones that came in that Strixhaven Commander deck that I was really excited. Like, playing other people's cards is always fun, and forcing them to give you a card when they attack you is just, I like it a lot.
Yeah, and Prosper just says whenever you play a card from exile, that card was exiled.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if it was your exiles or not, it's just exiled. So
yep. Pretty simple. The next one, I'm gonna skip down here one. It's pretty standard, and we've talked about it a lot of why isn't this card in like every red commander precon, and that's Plasma Sack. Yeah. I can tell, I can see why they don't put it in everyone because, it becomes ubiquitous and stuff like that. But yeah, Blasphemous Act, great card. I think they put it in at least one anytime there's a red deck. Almost every time they come out with a commander precon, if there's one that has red, they try and put it in there. it's a very, very good card in red, and I don't know why you wouldn't play it. So
yeah,
put it right in the deck.
Another removal spell in the vein of making sure we're playing cards from exile to get treasures is Murderous Writer from Throne of Eldraine. It's a 3-mana. The swift end side is an instant that destroys target creature or planeswalker, and you lose 2 life. But then you exile it, and then you can play it for 3 as a life-linking 2/3 that when it dies goes on the bottom of your library, and that'll just get you a treasure. And we're kind of building up to getting all these treasures for a reason, right? Like, that's what we're doing here. We're just trying to get as many treasures as possible, and there can't be any particular reason to do so.
Yeah. Anytime somebody has the Revel and Riches in play and just people start blowing up the world, all the creatures, I get real concerned real fast. Yep. I've definitely lost that card more than once. So,
which is our next card is Revel and Riches.
Yeah.
This card is just
awesome. Yeah. Revel and Riches is super awesome. Get you a treasure anytime a creature an opponent controls dies, and then you at the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 10 or more treasures, you win the game.
10. That's it.
I have lost to this card multiple times.
Yeah. With Prosper, I imagine it's not going to be very difficult to get treasures.
Get up to that 10 treasures very easily. Yeah.
Let's see. Next card we have another card that you would play from exile, which is Profane Tutor. This is from the Modern Horizons 2 set. This is the demonic tutor that has no mana cost, and it is only suspendable for 2 mana and 2 turns. So, and then it searches your library for any card, put it to your hand, or shuffle your library. So, I'm not huge on suspend in Commander. It's got to be really worth it. But this card, suspend 2. 2 is not that much. Yeah. Not that much to go get the best card in your deck. Obviously, Demonic Tutor is a better card, but Demonic Tutor is also, 10 times the cost of this card. So I think this is a very suitable replacement that does some pretty good work.
I think they've been doing a very solid job on the more recent suspend cards, because there was this one, there was the ones in the Strixhaven Commander decks that once they were suspended, they cast and then went back to suspend. And so they were repeatable, things like that. They're really cool. They've been utilizing that space really well recently, I think.
Yep.
The next one, I'm going to skip down one more, which is one that I was very excited about when it came out. I still try to use it when I can. I went out to the, I think it was a draft weekend that they made a promo for it, specifically to get this promo, and that is Oracle's Vault. It's silly, and I love it. So it is a 4-mana artifact. You can tap 2 and tap it to exile the top card of your library. Until end of turn, you may play that card, and then you put a brick counter on Oracle's Vault. And then you can tap it to exile the top card of your library. Until end of turn, you may play that card without paying its mana cost if you have 3 or more brick counters on it already.
Yep.
So I think this is silly. I love playing big cards without paying their mana costs. So I immediately went out and got this one, got the promo, put it in, a deck, tried to, it's not even like abusing it really, because it takes time to build up.
Yep.
But I just love that kind of effect. So
for sure. Very sweet card.
It's super fun.
Another recent card, we talked about at the beginning of this that playing cards from exile has become more and more popular with Kaldheim. Kind of gave you a bunch of cards for that. And one of those is Dream Devourer. So Dream Devourer is a 2-mana 0/3 demon cleric, and it's each non-land card in your hand without Foretell has Foretell. And if the Foretell cost is equal to its mana cost reduced by 2. So being able to foretell a card out of your hand for 2, and being able to cast that for 2 less with this out there, also if Prosper's out there is going to give you that treasure, which is kind of what you're trying to do to build those up. And then whenever you foretell a card, Dream Devourer gets +2/+0. So, you can randomly smack someone or smack a planeswalker if you need to, but that's not why it's there.
Not going to be utilizing that second ability very often, but it is still just a sweet way to get more cards in exile and be able to play them from exile easily.
Yep.
And so our last card is another one that's similar that really likes playing cards from exile, and that's from the newest Zendikar set, and it's Valica Exploration. It's 2 and a red for an enchantment and has landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card for as long as it remains exiled. And at the beginning of your end step, if there are cards exiled with it, put them into their owner's graveyard. Then it deals that much damage to each opponent. So really useful if you've got multiple ways to play lands in a turn, or if you've got some Terramorphic Expanse or fetch lands sort of thing, can get multiple triggers on it at once. You can build up those couple and you either get to play some really sweet cards, or if you've hit a couple lands or something like that, you put them into the graveyard and you're just pinging everyone for 1 or 2 damage.
Yeah, Phyrexian Arena was like the original 3-mana enchantment that gave you an extra card on your upkeep, and like we've had iterations of that in different forms throughout all of Magic since then. Even Howling Mine in Alpha. But this is that kind of, this is Red's version of that. Outpost Siege, Valica Exploration. Instead of putting it directly in your hand, they just exile it, which with Prosper is exactly what you want to do. You'd rather do that than draw it anyways.
Yeah, for sure. So that's all the cards that we would add to the deck. This one, we probably went a little bit higher in actual monetary cost, just because there's really good cards like Burgi and Revel and Riches are, creeping up a little bit, but it's still, reasonable. You're still probably paying less for all these singles than you would for even the deck itself. So going over some of the cards that we would actually take out of the deck. Do you want to go over the first one here?
Don't play Hex. It's a trap. Decimate's not a trap. Hex is a trap. 6 mana, sorcery, destroy 6 target creatures. 6 is a lot. You're going to be very upset every time there's 5. You're going to be very frustrated every time there's 4. And it just sits there and rots. So you're going to have to kill your own creature in order to actually cast Hex. Don't play Hex. Friends don't let friends play Hex. Just don't play the card. Don't play it at all. Get it out of your deck.
I knew you had strong feelings about this one, so I'm glad that you let everybody know about that. The next one is Tysis, which was, I believe, in the original Time Spiral, right?
It was, yep.
Yeah. Destroy target creature. Its controller loses life equal to its power plus its toughness. Suspend 5 for 1 in a black, because you're not going to be paying 3 and 4 black almost ever for this card.
Card costs a lot.
It costs a lot, or you have to wait a real long time for it to actually be relevant.
Yeah.
Not super great. Put in Murderous Writer or some other piece of removal that's going to just be better.
Exactly. So the next card is a pretty sweet card with Prosper, and it's Apex of Power. Exile top 7 cards of your library, and until end of turn, you can cast spells from among them. If a spell was cast from your hand, if this spell was cast from your hand, add 10 mana of any one color to your mana pool. And it gives you 10 mana because it costs 10 mana. I'm just not casting spells that cost 10 mana unless they instantly win the game. That's 10 is a lot. This is a lot of mana, and I don't even want to try to cast this spell. As cool as it would be to cast it and get it for free and get my mana back and play a bunch of spells and get some treasures, I'm just not willing to do it.
Yeah, I can definitely understand that. The next one, I know that you added into this list of cards to take out because you absolutely detest this keyword, and that is Goad. And this is Shiny Impetus. It's an aura. Creature gets +2/+2 and is goaded. And whenever enchanted creature attacks, you create a treasure token. So I just know that you really dislike
I will note that I left the good code Disrupt Decorum in there because that card can just win you a game. Shiny Impetus does not win you a game.
No. It gets you that extra treasure token.
Yes. Yeah. Which you're putting plenty of good ways to get treasure tokens now. So
yeah. Lots of other ways to do it. Yep. Shiny Impetus, okay, not great.
Yep.
And definitely more less okay in John's book.
Yes. The next 2 cards I cut were 2 rat cards, basically, and that is Piper of the Swarm, which is a human warlock that gives you a rats you control menace, and then you can pay 2 tap it to create rats, and pay 4 to sacrifice 3 rats and gain control of a creature. That and Ogre Slumlord, I don't really understand why we would want to bother it. There's just better things we can do. I'm not really interested in trying to make a bunch of rats and give them death touch. And I mean, there's some benefit to that, right? You have some little blockers and things of that nature. And if you have things like Revel and Riches doesn't even matter because it's creatures your opponents control. So
yeah, if you need something to target with your Hex.
Yeah, that's really why they're in there. It's to make sure that you can cast Hex every time you draw it. That's exactly why those cards are in there. You're going to have to target your rats, but then you get to cast your Hex, I guess. So
yeah,
it's a whole package.
Swarm is one of those that I always want it to be good because it's such a cool card, like flavor wise, especially.
It's real sweet.
And it's very like Triad of the Fates. I always want that one to be good, and it's never quite good enough for me.
Yeah.
But I definitely want to try to put it in decks when I can. So the next one that we're looking at is Fiend of the Shadows, which is a 3/3 for 5 mana vampire wizard. Flying, whenever Fiend of the Shadows deals combat damage to a player, that player exiles a card from his or her hand. You may play that card for as long as it remains exiled. Sacrifice a human to regenerate it. So just another way to get a card from your opponent, especially, and put it into exile and cast it from exile. But it has to hit, and
a lot of mana.
It's a 3/3 flyer for 5.
Yeah. This is we're trying to fill out the preconstructed deck with rares. This one's kind of on theme, but it's an easy way to cut. Easy one to cut. So
yeah, I think so too.
Let's see. One of the other creatures went ahead and cut from the deck was Loyal Apprentice. Now, I do like this card in some decks. I don't really like it here. And Loyal Apprentice is just a 2-mana 2/1 with haste. And at the beginning of combat on your turn, if you control your commander, you get a 1/1 flying Thopter. So with haste, and that's really sweet.
I think the Lieutenant mechanic was a very neat one.
Yeah,
and I think this is a pretty good card. I'm not quite sure that you want it in this deck.
Yeah, this doesn't really, it doesn't really do much. It doesn't help trigger anything on Prosper. It just makes little 1/1s.
Yeah,
gives you creature for your hex.
I can see it for being, for your hex, for flying blockers.
Sure,
definitely.
Sure,
but that's about it. The next one is one that is unique to this deck, but we always kind of seem to have a card that's unique to the deck that we always look at it and go, I'm not quite sure about this one. And this one is Ebony Fly. It's an artifact for 2 mana, enters the battlefield tapped, and taps for colorless. So it's a mana rock that comes into play tapped. Okay. And then you can pay 4, roll a d6 until end of turn. You may have Ebony Fly become an XX insect artifact creature with flying, where X is the result. And whenever it attacks, another target attacking creature gains flying until end of turn. So you get a randomly sized creature for 4 mana between 1 and 6 that's flying and can also jump one of your other creatures up into the air. That's okay. I don't know if it's really worth that rate. So not quite sure. Could be really good, but again, it's like I'm wondering how often you're going to have like a 1/1, 2/2, or 3/3.
More often.
It seems like it's just the way that Magic and dice rolling works in D&D. You're always just gonna be like, man, I got a 2/2 flyer that's gonna give my other 2/2 flying.
Yeah.
Shrug, So.
And the last card we took out is another mana rock for this deck, and that is Orzaka Relic. Another one of those Ixalan cards. And it has Ascend, tap for colorless, and then you can tap, sacrifice it, you gain 3 life and draw a card. And you can only activate that if you have the City's Blessing. So this is just a generic mana rock. There are infinite better ones that you can put in your deck that are just as cheap as this. It's nice to be able to draw a card later in the game, but again, there's better options. You can play a Clue Stone. You're probably already playing Clue Stones in this deck, but there's plenty of options that you get. So
yeah, you've already got your Arcane Signet. You've already got your Commander Sphere.
You actually don't have a Clue Stone.
Galwar Stone. Huh?
You actually don't have a Clue Stone.
You got
play
Signet,
Rakdos Clue Stone.
Yeah, Talisman, Mind Stone. Like, you got a lot of really decent. In black and red, you kind of need them.
Mm-hmm.
Your artifact rock, your mana rocks. But yeah, I'm not sure that you want that one specifically in this deck.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm pretty excited to see how Prosper works. I think straight out of the box, I think this is a really cool one. I think they're all really cool. Like, they've done a really good job the last year plus with the commander decks and kind of balancing them and having some really sweet things going on. So yeah, I'm pretty excited. If you're like me and you really love D&D and you've played it for almost as long, if not longer, than you have Magic, I'm excited to pick up all 4 of these commander decks, and you can too at starcitygames.com. You can pre-order them right now. And also make sure to let us know what cards you would add to the deck in the comments below. And also remember to like, share, and subscribe. For Jonathan Suarez, I'm Jeremy Knoll. Thank you so much for watching.